Black woman CEO, mocked by billionaire white family. Then she cancels the 900 megahertz deal. Olivia Bennet stepped out of the luxury sedan and strode toward the Hartley family's magnificent mansion in her perfectly tailored navy suit, exuding both elegance and authority. As the CEO of a renowned tech conglomerate, she had come to finalize a $900 million deal, one that could redefine her company's future and cement a partnership with one of the oldest, most powerful dynasties of wealth and privilege. The moment Olivia appeared at the grand entrance, every eye in the room snapped to her. Whispered murmurs rippled through the crowd like an invisible wave. A pearl necklace-clad woman glanced up with thinly veiled disdain, her lips curling into a cold smile. At that instant, Michael Hartley, the sole heir to the family empire, raised his champagne flute, and his voice, dripping with sarcasm, called out, "Did someone mix up and bring the help in early?" Awkward laughter erupted around the banquet hall. Olivia froze for a heartbeat, her heart stung by the unexpected insult, but she quickly composed herself. No one moved to defend her, not even Richard Hartley, the venerable patriarch of the family. With a polite smile, she excused herself from the table, even though her dessert hadn't yet been served. Word of the $900 million partnership between Olivia's tech firm and the Hartley empire spread like wildfire through the business world. To many, it was a historic milestone for both sides, but for Olivia, it marked a deeply personal victory, a testament to years of shattering invisible barriers, overcoming prejudice, and winning brutal battles at the negotiation table. She was more than just a CEO. She embodied hope for everyone who'd ever been ignored, silenced, or underestimated. As the golden sunset bathed the estate in warm light, the Hartley mansion gleamed like a jewel on the Beverly Hills hillside. A row of gleaming supercars lined the driveway, and crystal chandeliers sparkled behind the mansion's ornate windows, clear symbols of the Hartleys' unmatched power and prosperity. From the sleek black sedan, Olivia descended once more, her tailored navy jacket highlighting her poise and natural grace. The click of her stiletto heels on the marble steps was steady and deliberate, each stride an unspoken declaration of the status she'd painstakingly earned. Her radiant brown skin and the neat updo of her curled hair conveyed a rare confidence. In her eyes shone a single, quiet message. She was not here as a mere guest, but as the holder of the key to a deal that could reshape the tech landscape. Crossing the threshold into the grand hall, she passed through towering doors carved with intricate floral motifs. Conversations hushed to discreet whispers. A few faces showed genuine admiration. Others betrayed surprise and doubt. Few had anticipated that the lauded CEO of a top-tier tech firm, so widely touted in the press, would turn out to be such a young black woman. Olivia, however, remained unruffled. She offered a calm, polite smile, her gaze sweeping the room with quiet determination, an unspoken reminder that her value lay not in idle gossip or others' preconceptions, but in her proven skill, integrity, and vision. In the far corner, Michael Hartley watched her with a calculating smirk, curiosity, and skepticism flickering in his eyes. Olivia advanced toward Richard Hartley, the family's head, and extended her hand to greet him, only to have a haughty voice ring out, cutting through the elegantly charged air at that very moment. Did someone accidentally let the help in too early? The chill in his voice cut through the silence like a blade. Every head turned instantly to the speaker, Michael Hartley, the only son and prized heir of the Hartley family's billion-dollar empire. Michael stood beside the long table draped in white silk, one hand lifting his sparkling champagne flute. His gaze was cold and self-satisfied. Crystals from the chandelier cast shifting shadows across his sharp features, lending an eerie depth to his eyes, simultaneously magnetic and frosty. The smirk on his lips held no genuine warmth, only contempt cloaked in a veneer of civility. At that moment, time seemed to freeze. Every conversation halted, leaving only the soft strains of background music to underscore the mounting tension. The guests glanced at each other. A few forced, nervous laughs broke the stillness, attempts to mask their discomfort with polite facades. Those hollow chuckles felt like 100 tiny needles to Olivia's heart. A woman accustomed to commanding the largest stages, leading thousands of employees and conquering countless brutal challenges, now found herself publicly humiliated before dozens of strangers. Her chest tightened, her face flushed with anger and shame, but Olivia maintained flawless composure. Not far away, Richard Hartley, respected patriarch and head of the family, stood silently. He did not intervene. His eyes flickered with uncertainty, perhaps concerned for the family's reputation or unwilling to contradict his son in front of distinguished guests. Richard's silence was a bitter acquiescence, amplifying Olivia's pain and isolation. Amid the storm of her emotions, Olivia held her posture tall and met Michael's gaze with quiet steadiness. No words were spoken, yet her powerful silence conveyed profound disdain for his crude insult. She knew she represented not just herself, but everyone ever belittled or discriminated against in the same way. Michael raised his champagne glass a little higher, delighting in her reaction. Clearly, this was not his first act of arrogance. Raised in privilege, he'd inherited every advantage, but not a shred of basic empathy. His taunt was merely the latest proof of how money and status had warped him. The tension remained suffocating. Olivia's eyes swept the room one last time. She caught sight of several younger guests bowing their heads, avoiding her gaze. They understood what had just happened, but lacked the courage to speak up or even show a sliver of solidarity. Then, with a proud smile, Olivia gave Richard a graceful nod, a final courteous farewell, and turned to leave. Her heels clicked confidently on the marble floor, louder and more assured than ever. She exited the room with her head held high, even as Michael Hartley's challenging, satisfied stare followed her out. What Michael didn't realize was that his thoughtless affront wouldn't just wound Olivia, it would spark a battle he himself had unwittingly ignited. And in that fight, the arrogant often end up paying the steepest price. The click of Olivia's heels on the marble floor rang out like the steady beat of a triumphant anthem, shattering the suffocating tension Michael Hartley had just created. Guests tracked her every step, their eyes flickering with a mix of astonishment and restrained admiration for the astonishing calm she maintained in the face of public humiliation. When Olivia paused at the great doors of the hall, she turned once more to survey the room. The faint smile on her lips conveyed neither weakness nor bitterness. Instead, it spoke volumes. No matter how unjustly she was treated, she remained utterly in control of herself. Michael caught that smile, and for a moment, his champagne flute quivered in his hand, despite his best effort to look unfazed. Nearby, Richard Hartley, Michael's father, and the esteemed patriarch stood motionless, his expression unreadable. He watched Olivia walk away without uttering a word. His silence was a cruel endorsement of his son's contempt. Richard knew full well the fallout of the evening's insult, yet his pride, as the head of the Hartley name, would not allow him to object in front of their distinguished guests. In choosing his family's reputation over justice, he became complicit in the pain inflicted on an innocent woman. Michael, after a brief flicker of surprise at Olivia's dignified response, quickly reassumed his indifferent composure. He offered a casual chuckle, as if her departure were no more than a minor power play, a reminder of the dominance he believed himself entitled to. He was used to obedience, to having mistakes brushed away by his father's name and wealth. To Michael, Olivia was simply an inconvenient yet disposable victim. Yet beneath his bravado, Michael felt an unsettling ripple of doubt. He had humiliated many before, but none had departed with such poise and quiet dignity. Olivia's steady gaze and final proud smile left a small crack in his confidence, a seed of uncertainty about the strength and authority he so prized. Though he would never admit it, her reaction struck at the fragile core of his vanity. Outside the Hartley estate, the cool night air washed away the heat on Olivia's cheeks. A gentle breeze stirred loose strands of her hair as she stood tall, drawing in a deep, steadying breath. In that moment, she felt the full weight of the battle she fought every day, against bias, against racism, against the invisible injustices of society. A young attendant bowed respectfully at the gate. Olivia returned a gracious nod, an unspoken thank you. She knew true strength wasn't measured by sharp retorts or explosive confrontations, but by unwavering self-respect and resolve, even when the world seemed poised to crush her. She slid into her black sedan and closed the door softly. The car pulled away from the glittering mansion, leaving behind the blinding lights and opulent sounds of the party, but also the first fractures in the Hartley family's foundation of power. Olivia understood this was only the beginning. She would not be silenced. Rather than engage in petty revenge, she would wield her integrity and skill to secure the ultimate victory. Inside the hall, Michael Hartley raised his champagne glass with practiced ease, determined to push down the uneasy flutter in his chest. He could not yet see that Olivia Bennett's composed defiance had set in motion a reckoning far more costly than anything he had ever imagined. The sedan glided quietly through the gates of the Hartley estate, fading into the darkness of the deserted streets. Olivia leaned back in her seat, her eyes half closed, but her mind racing. She had believed that calm and composure would feel like victory when she left the party, but instead, she now faced an intense, tension-filled inner battle. As soon as she stepped into her downtown apartment, her phone buzzed with an urgent message from the board chair. "We need to talk right now. It's very serious." A single line, yet enough to show that tonight's fallout was already spreading and would not be easily contained. Olivia sat by the large window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Her phone kept lighting up with messages from board members, worried, anxious, all urging her to get back to the table and salvage the $900 million deal they believed could transform the company's future. But Olivia knew that returning meant bowing to the humiliation Michael Hartley had inflicted. Her heart wouldn't allow it. The night wore on, but sleep wouldn't come. The room lay in darkness and absolute silence, a stark contrast to the turmoil in her mind. Memories of wounds she'd hidden for years surged back, vivid and painful, as if they'd happened only yesterday. She remembered her first day at a prestigious university among students from wealthy families, the contemptuous glances, the whispered cruel remarks behind her back, the stifled giggles as she walked the long corridors, all still echoed in her mind. Back then, she vowed never to let anyone belittle her again. She would prove that skin color and background could never define a person's worth. Those memories mingled with Michael Hartley's arrogant face from tonight, fortifying her resolve. Yet her heart ached whenever she recalled Richard Hartley's look, the look of a father who refused to stand up for what was right, silently watching his son humiliate another to preserve the family's hollow honor. Olivia wondered, was the power of money and status really worth more than self-respect and dignity? Her phone lit up again, this time a call from Sarah Mitchell, her close friend and the company's vice president. Olivia hesitated, then answered. "Olivia, the board is on edge. Some members want an emergency vote to reverse our decision. They say we can't afford to lose such a huge investment." Sarah's voice wavered with concern. "Sarah, I understand," Olivia replied calmly, though her chest tightened. "But if I give in now, everything we've built, our ethics, our integrity, the honor of this company, will mean nothing." "I know," Sarah said hesitantly, "but are you sure this is the best move? Sometimes you have to accept a bit of pain to achieve something greater." Olivia shook her head slightly, her voice soft but resolute. "No, Sarah, not this time. No one has the right to trade dignity for money, whether it's $900 million or more." When the call ended, Olivia sank back into her chair, exhaustion pressing down on her shoulders. Outside, dawn was breaking, driving away the darkness, but unable to soothe her inner turmoil. The sleepless night had been one of the longest of her life, yet it would also decide her fate and that of the company. Deep down, Olivia knew this choice would bring enormous challenges and hardships, but she also understood that sometimes the hardest decisions are the right ones, choices she would never regret. Meanwhile, in the opulent Hartley mansion, Michael Hartley also spent the night awake. Unlike Olivia, his restlessness didn't stem from moral conviction, but from a vague unease and growing doubt. For the first time, Michael realized that his power and wealth could not buy everything, and that realization angered him more than ever. The first rays of dawn filtered through the floor-to-ceiling glass, illuminating Olivia's steadfast expression. A sleepless night had left her weary, but it had also crystallized her resolve more clearly than ever. For her, there was no choice but to face every challenge head-on. At precisely 7 a.m., Olivia entered the company's grand boardroom, where the board of directors and senior executives were already assembled. Each face reflected anxiety and doubt. The atmosphere was taut, every breath seeming heavier than the last. Olivia stood before them, her gaze sweeping slowly across familiar faces. In that moment, she realized how many had lost their conviction, how easily they were willing to yield to the material pull of a $900 million deal. They had forgotten that the values they stood for mattered more than money. Her calm, clear voice broke the oppressive silence. I know you all understand what happened last night at the Hartley estate, and I know this $900 million partnership is a tremendous opportunity, but I cannot and will not sacrifice our dignity and principles for money. The room immediately erupted. Peter Anderson, the CFO, jumped to his feet, his tone sharp with frustration. Olivia, you can't make that call unilaterally. This directly affects the company's survival. Olivia remained perfectly composed, her eyes unwavering on Peter. Peter, I appreciate your concern, but the reason this company has thrived is because we never compromise on justice or respect for others. Partnering with the Hartleys now would betray the very values we've built. That's purely personal emotion, interjected Margaret Lewis, a veteran board member. We can't let impulse squander such a massive opportunity. A brief apology from the Hartleys would be more than enough. This is a $900 million deal, Olivia. Olivia exhaled softly. Margaret was right about the business side, but wrong on ethics. She gave a firm shake of her head. This isn't about feelings, Margaret. It's about respect and integrity. A perfunctory apology won't undo the public humiliation we endured. Peter's brow furrowed, his voice edged with worry. If we walk away, our share price will plunge. How do you plan to explain that to our shareholders? I'll tell them we don't do business with cowardice, Olivia replied instantly, her voice steely. We do business with honor and integrity. That is what will sustain and grow this company. The boardroom fell silent once more, but this time it was a silence of contemplation. Even those who disagreed felt the power of Olivia's words. Elsewhere, in his private office, Michael Hartley watched the unfolding crisis on his phone with a smirk. He reveled in the board's turmoil, confident Olivia would soon buckle under internal pressure. To him, this game was already won. What he failed to see was that his own overconfidence blinded him to one truth. Olivia Bennett was no easy target. Back in the boardroom, Olivia looked each person in the eye. I'm not asking for unanimous agreement, but as the leader of this company, I am officially withdrawing from the Hartley deal, and I accept full responsibility for any fallout. Her clear, forceful declaration silenced the room. Everyone recognized it wasn't just a personal statement. It was the stand of a woman prepared to defend her and her company's honor at any cost. Olivia turned and left the boardroom, leaving behind a charged stillness and a shaken leadership. She knew today's decision would unleash storms of controversy, but it was a choice she would never regret. And in her heart, Olivia understood that her toughest battle was only just beginning. Just hours after leaving the tense board meeting, Olivia Bennett stood confidently at the podium in a vast hall, facing hundreds of reporters and media representatives. Flashbulbs popped incessantly as curious, expectant eyes fixed on her, awaiting an official explanation for the decision that was rocking the business world. Olivia wore a simple yet powerful white suit, her hair pulled into a neat chignon, her eyes unwavering with resolve. A hush descended over the room as she stepped up to the microphone, leaning in slightly, as if about to deliver the most important statement of her life. My dignity is not for sale at any price, she began, her voice clear and strong. I am officially withdrawing from the $900 million partnership with the Hartley Corporation. The room erupted in stunned chatter and rapid-fire questions. Reporters jostled to get the microphone first, desperate for more details on this shocking reversal. Miss Bennett, are you concerned about negative reactions from your shareholders? Asked a senior journalist, skepticism etched on his face. Olivia replied calmly but firmly. I believe our shareholders understand our core values. We cannot build our future on deals that compromise our honor and integrity. But, ma'am, isn't this decision overly emotional? Some say you're letting personal feelings override the company's best interests, pressed a young female reporter. Olivia met her gaze without flinching. If defending one's self-respect and dignity is called emotional, then yes, I am acting on emotion. But I firmly believe that in business and in life, certain principles must never be broken, no matter the reason. Backstage, Sarah Mitchell, Olivia's close friend and the company's vice president, watched with a mix of concern and pride. She knew Olivia was doing what few leaders dared, standing up for principle in a world where profit always takes precedence. Meanwhile, in the grand office of the Hartley mansion, Michael Hartley watched the press conference live, his face hardening with rage and unexpected anxiety. Olivia's bold statement struck at the very core of his pride, making him realize for the first time that his presumed control was slipping. "She really went through with it," he muttered, anger rising. He was used to people caving to the Hartley name, but Olivia Bennett had caught him completely off guard. Back on stage, the press conference continued to crackle with tension as reporters lobbed piercing questions about racism, discrimination, and ethics in big business. Olivia answered each one with calm intelligence, making clear that her decision was not a hasty impulse, but the product of a profound struggle with her deepest values. A renowned anchor from a major network asked the final question in a sincere tone. "Ms. Bennett, what message would you like to convey to young entrepreneurs, especially those facing discrimination and pressure from powerful interests like the Hartley family?" Olivia looked directly into the camera, her voice dropping to a resonant conviction. "My message is this: no one has the right to define your worth by your race, gender, or background. True success isn't measured by how much money you make, but by how much dignity and integrity you preserve in the face of challenge and pressure." Her words spread instantly, dominating news coverage and igniting social media with millions of shares, praising her courage and uncompromising stance. On stage, Olivia remained unwavering, her expression unshaken. She knew storms still lay ahead, but in this moment, she understood more clearly than ever. It's not about avoiding the storm, but having the strength to face it and emerge with your self-respect and core values intact. Just hours after Olivia's powerful declaration still dominated the headlines and reverberated through the business community, an unexpected twist, one Michael Hartley never saw coming, completely upended the confrontation. That very night, as Michael scrambled to douse the first flames of the crisis, his phone buzzed non-stop with alerts. A short video, barely 2 minutes long, was being shared at lightning speed, amassing millions of views within hours. Heart pounding, Michael hit play and watched himself standing in that opulent ballroom, champagne flute in hand, arrogantly sneering. Did someone mix up and bring the help in too early? The footage, shot discreetly, most likely on a server's phone, captured the exact moment of his insult. Someone he'd never noticed, an invisible bystander in his eyes, now held the proof that would shake the Hartley empire to its core. Within hours, the clip had gone viral, flooded with scathing criticism. The hashtag "Respect is Priceless" trended across every major social platform, fueled by public outrage. Social media users denounced Michael's arrogance and racial bias, demanding a public apology from the Hartleys, and even calling for a boycott of all the family's businesses. At Hartley headquarters, pandemonium erupted. The communications team was besieged by calls from the press and major business partners, all demanding an explanation. Hartley's stock plummeted as institutional investors panicked and sold off shares. In a single night, the wealth and reputation the Hartleys had built over decades teetered on the brink of collapse. Seated in his expansive office, Michael stared at his phone, first in disbelief, then anger, and finally in fear. How had this happened? Who had dared betray the Hartley name? Who dared challenge his absolute authority? In his mind, Michael had never believed himself wrong. Power and privilege were his birthright. He was used to people bowing to him, to every misstep being covered up by his family's influence. Yet now, that video laid bare all the hypocrisy he'd carefully hidden for years. Confronted with a torrent of angry comments and viral outrage, Michael felt a gnawing fear of total loss of control. Meanwhile, in her own office, Olivia sat reading message after message of support pouring in from around the globe. She knew the video would intensify an already volatile situation, but it was also the strongest proof that her stand wasn't a solitary act, but the voice of countless people who had been belittled and discriminated against. Sarah Mitchell entered, tablet in hand, her eyes shining as she shared the latest social media metrics. "Olivia, it's exploding out there. Millions are on your side. Hartley Corporation is under unbelievable pressure. I've never seen such fierce, unified backlash." Olivia nodded thoughtfully, her resolve unshaken. Sarah, this isn't just about me and Michael anymore. Now we send a clear message. Respect and human dignity aren't for sale at any price. That's what I've always believed, and what I will fight to protect. At the Hartley mansion, Richard Hartley hastened into Michael's office, his face a mask of anger and disappointment. Michael, do you realize what you've done? One stupid remark has dragged our entire family into a crisis we've never faced before. Michael looked up, trying to steady his voice. Father, I'll get this under control. I just need a little more time. Control? Richard cut him off, fury in his tone. This isn't something money and power can just sweep under the rug. You've gone too far this time. His father's words struck Michael like a cold splash of water, shattering the pride he'd always taken for granted. For the first time, he realized that wealth and status could vanish in an instant before the combined might of public opinion and the integrity of people like Olivia Bennet. That night, the social media firestorm showed no signs of dying down, and the battle between dignity and material power had truly entered its most decisive, unrelenting phase. As dawn broke over the city skyline, the first light filtered through the thick glass of Michael's office windows, trying to illuminate the deep cracks in an empire he'd always thought unshakable. After a sleepless, tension-filled night, Michael felt more keenly than ever that his power and status teetered on the brink of collapse. That morning, Hartley Corporation's share price plunged 18% within the first few hours of trading, unleashing unprecedented chaos on the financial markets. Major investors panicked, dumping stock en masse, while traders frantically reported the dire situation. Never before had the Hartley name, long regarded as a rock-solid symbol of prestige and influence, appeared so fragile and vulnerable. In the emergency boardroom at the Hartley estate, Richard Hartley stared at the live ticker, showing the share price spiraling downward. His face had gone ashen with worry. Silence gripped the room. No one dared speak. Finally, Richard turned to Michael, his voice cold but trembling with anger. Michael, what have you done? This corporation is not your toy to be wrecked by your arrogance and irresponsibility. Michael sat motionless, his gaze distant and frosty. He offered no reply, but in his eyes burned a fierce unease. He'd never before confronted the real-world consequences of his actions. The pride of a man who believed the world revolved around him was crumbling, replaced by a rising tide of fear. That afternoon, the board of directors convened an urgent meeting. Their faces were stern, their anger palpable. To stabilize both image and operations, Chairman Thomas Gallagher, a longtime partner and close friend of Richard, rose and declared, "We have no choice but to suspend Michael from all leadership duties immediately, until a full investigation is complete and public confidence is restored. This is the only way forward." Michael's eyes widened in shock, then blazed with outrage and panic. "You can't do this. This is my family's company." Thomas fixed him with a steely glance, disappointment clear in his tone. "Michael, you brought this crisis upon us with your hubris and lack of accountability. Don't forget who put us in this mess." Michael fell silent, bitterness mingling with fury. He'd never imagined the people who'd once deferred to him would ever turn on him so decisively. For the first time in his life, he felt truly out of control. Outside the corporate headquarters, hundreds gathered, waving protest banners. They called for a boycott of all Hartley products and services, chanting fiercely, "We won't tolerate bigotry. Dignity is priceless." Live images of the demonstration spread across social media, ratcheting up the pressure on the company. Every brand affiliated with Hartley began issuing statements, distancing themselves, canceling ads and partnerships. The media labeled it one of the most severe corporate crises in U.S. history, with all the heat focused squarely on Michael Hartley, the man who had ignited this scandal. Alone in his vast estate office, Michael stood by the window, watching the turmoil below, his mind in turmoil. He could scarcely believe that a thoughtless jest of his had wrought such catastrophic damage. The walls of power he'd so carefully constructed over years had become meaningless in the face of public opinion and the unwavering dignity of a woman he'd once scoffed at. Richard entered quietly, his tone somber but calm. "Michael, it's time you face the consequences of your actions. I've always shielded you from your minor mistakes. This time, I can only let you bear the responsibility yourself." Michael met his father's gaze, feeling a depth of despair he'd never known. "Father, is there any way to salvage this?" Richard shook his head, sadness in his eyes. "Perhaps, but it will be the most costly lesson you ever learn. Arrogance is never true power, Michael. I hope you'll understand that." Diu. As Richard left, Michael felt for the first time that he was losing more than power or position. He was losing the trust and respect of everyone around him. Outside, the protesters' chants still rang out, a cold reminder that the price of arrogance is always steepest of all. While the Hartley family scrambled to contain an escalating crisis in another corner of the city, Olivia Bennet faced a completely different and wholly unexpected turn of events. From the early morning, Olivia's office had been busier than ever. Phones rang non-stop, and her inbox overflowed with partnership proposals from leading domestic and international corporations, names she'd long dreamed of working with. In just 24 hours since the video went viral, more than a dozen new offers had arrived, each from companies renowned for integrity, strong ethics, and a genuine commitment to valuing people above profit. Sarah Mitchell entered Olivia's office, clutching a stack of documents emblazoned with familiar corporate logos. Her face shone with excitement and pride. "Olivia, I've never seen anything like this. Major players like Sterling Global, North Star Industries, and Wilson Group all want to partner with us. They're drawn to your integrity and unwavering stance." Diopsh. Olivia quietly flipped through the pages, her expression calm and modest. Rather than gloat over this sudden triumph, she offered a gentle smile. "Sarah, you know this isn't my victory alone. It belongs to everyone brave enough to stand up for dignity and principle. I'm just one small part of it." "But Olivia," Sarah said earnestly, "your courage and your refusal to back down inspired so many. You've shown everyone that some values are worth more than money." Olivia gazed thoughtfully out the window. "I understand that, Sarah, but life and our work don't stop at this victory. We still have so much to do, and our responsibility now is greater than ever." While Olivia maintained her composed professionalism, declining all interview requests and public appearances, the media grew even more impressed with her quiet strength. Social channels buzzed with praise for her humility and noble character, turning her into a symbol of courage and ethical conviction in business. Elsewhere, Michael Hartley monitored the news of Olivia's remarkable resurgence with bitter indignation. Just days ago, he'd believed he could control everything, but now everything had unraveled. Not only had Olivia weathered his affront, she'd emerged far stronger than before. Every compliment she received felt like a direct indictment of him, a constant reminder of his humiliating failure. Worse yet, prestigious companies lining up to back Olivia served as a silent rebuke to the Hartleys. Firms that once hesitated to work with the family now flocked to Olivia Bennet, a woman Michael had once dismissed. "This is ridiculous," he muttered in impotent rage. "I can't believe one careless comment handed her such an easy victory." Yet deep down, Michael realized this wasn't a trivial mistake. It stemmed from his arrogance and contempt, and that kind of error carries a steep price. Back at her office, Olivia meticulously reviewed each proposal, prioritizing partners who not only had financial clout, but shared her company's core values. In her mind, the goal wasn't to capitalize on this momentary triumph, but to ensure consistency in her actions and the principles she'd always championed. 1 week later, Olivia officially signed alliances with several of the most reputable firms, deals that far exceeded the value of the original $900 million agreement, representing a new, more sustainable path forward. Though her spectacular success drew widespread admiration, Olivia remained humble and spoke no word of self-congratulation. That humility only deepened the respect Olivia commanded, proving that true victory isn't about defeating an opponent, but standing firm in one's values and dignity. In this silent battle for integrity, Olivia Bennet didn't just rise. She broadcast a powerful message no one could ignore. That evening, as soon as the new partnership agreements were signed, Olivia Bennet received a special invitation from the organizers of the Global Leadership Summit, an esteemed gathering of leaders, social activists, and successful entrepreneurs from around the world. This year's theme was one that never grows old, but always demands deep reflection: the cost of dignity. That night, Olivia stepped onto the vast stage in front of thousands of attendees. Soft spotlights illuminated her elegant white suit. Her face was calm, but her eyes glowed with inner strength and determination. The hall fell into absolute silence, as if every person sensed the power of the moment. She began, her voice clear yet gentle, carrying an invisible force that held everyone rapt. Dignity is something we should never treat as a commodity to be bought or traded. Yet in life, we are often confronted with a choice. Should we sacrifice our dignity and self-respect in exchange for what we call success? I stand before you tonight, not because I have always made the right decisions, but because I too once faced that choice, and I learned that dignity carries a very high price. She paused, gazing warmly around the room, forging an unspoken connection with each listener. Many of us might think that dignity is a luxury reserved only for those who already have everything. But I want you to understand that dignity belongs to each and every one of us, and no one can take it away unless we allow it. Olivia then shared her own story with the Hartley Corporation, delicately but candidly, painting a vivid picture that resonated deeply. Not long ago, I believed success was measured by multi-million-dollar contracts and handshakes with the powerful. But I was wrong. True success isn't the number on a contract. It's our ability to stand firm in the face of challenges to our self-respect and to demand respect for ourselves. Her speech reached an emotional crescendo as she drove home her central message. Success means nothing if we sacrifice our dignity and self-respect. We can earn money, but money can never buy back the self-respect we lose. For a moment, the hall was hushed, then it erupted into a prolonged standing ovation. Olivia's message instantly spread across every news outlet and social feed, becoming a global talking point. She didn't just inspire young leaders, she awakened a sense of self-respect and pride long forgotten in many hearts. In a distant corner of the city, Michael Hartley watched the speech on a giant screen in his office. His cold expression turned grim as each of Olivia's words cut deeper into his wounded pride. He had never felt such crushing defeat. Every sentence she spoke felt like a direct indictment of him, forcing him to face the consequences of his thoughtless arrogance. "Who does she think she is?" Michael ground out in bitter frustration. Yet deep down, he knew the truth. Olivia had won this battle, not because she was somehow stronger, but because she stood on the side of what was right, on the side of dignity and self-respect, things he had never truly valued. Back in the auditorium, Olivia closed her address with a heartfelt challenge, her voice ringing with gentle resolve. We cannot choose how others treat us, but we can choose how we respond. I hope that each of us, no matter our position, will always remember that dignity is the most precious thing we possess, never traded away for any reason. Again, the audience rose in thunderous applause. Olivia offered a humble smile and a gracious bow, moved by their genuine support. In that moment, she understood that the power of sincere words, steadfast conviction, and self-respect can change the world, at least the corner of the world she inhabited. And though many challenges still lay ahead, Olivia knew this. As long as she never abandoned her principles or her dignity, nothing could defeat her. This story was no longer hers alone. It belonged to everyone brave enough to stand up for their self-respect and dignity in life. The moment Olivia stepped off the stage, the echoes of her speech continued to spread, not only throughout the conference hall, but rapidly across the globe. Her words were like a refreshing stream, reaching into the hearts of millions, far beyond the world of business or gilded auditoriums. Within days, Olivia's powerful message had become a worldwide phenomenon on social media, in newspapers, and on TV. Millions of people, especially young women of color, found in her story a source of genuine inspiration. They deeply identified with her journey, having themselves faced contempt, discrimination, and silent pressures in their everyday lives. Hashtags, Jarchi Dignity. Above all, and Sifrenti Respectes. Priceless went viral everywhere, from university campuses and corporate offices to large-scale social protests. Olivia was no longer just a successful businesswoman. She had become a living symbol of courage, self-respect, and integrity. Major universities in the U.S. and abroad began inviting her to deliver special lectures, where thousands of students hung on every word of her first-hand lessons. One by one, young people stood up to share, how Olivia's story had given them the confidence to assert their own value and rights. Nonprofits and advocacy groups for women's rights and racial equality actively celebrated and amplified her message. They used her example to show that true power doesn't come from wealth, status, or influence, but from self-respect and the resolve to stand firm under pressure. Olivia's impact soon attracted strong support from renowned leaders and influencers across many fields. Among them was actor-activist Cynthia Brooks, who publicly declared on national television, "Olivia Bennet has taught us a vital lesson about the true worth of every human being. She reminds us never to sell our self-respect, no matter how tempting the material gain. I'm proud to stand with her, and I believe the world will be better if more people follow her example." Senior executives at top corporations also voiced their admiration, calling Olivia's story a powerful reminder of the ethics and social responsibility every business must uphold. Samuel Harris, chairman of Sterling Global and one of Olivia's new partners, said, "We chose to work with Olivia Bennet, not just because of her outstanding business acumen, but because of the character and ethical values she steadfastly defends. In business, that courage to stand for dignity and justice is exactly what we need most." In stark contrast to Olivia's soaring success and influence, Michael Hartley found himself increasingly isolated and desperate. Every accolade for Olivia on the airwaves felt like salt in the wounds of his wounded pride. He realized he hadn't just lost a business deal or a media battle, he'd lost the fight against his own ego. Sitting alone in his darkened office, Michael watched Olivia's confident, resolute image fill his screens. He tried to turn them off, but found he couldn't escape the truth closing in on him. The respect she commanded, the trust of the public, none of it could be bought with money or power. "I've truly lost," Michael whispered, for the first time admitting a defeat he could no longer deny or ignore. Across town, Olivia wrapped up a long day and sat quietly by her office window, far removed from the world's clamor. She remained humble and discreet, never allowing herself to be swept away by praise. She knew real strength lay not in external applause, but in the ability to hold fast to one's core values, no matter how the world around them changed. Sarah Mitchell entered softly and smiled at her with warm pride. "Olivia, you may not realize it, but you've changed countless lives. You've shown that nothing is stronger than dignity and self-respect." Olivia returned her smile, her eyes still modest, but for the first time shining with a quiet, genuine pride. "Sarah, I only hope that if even one person rediscovers their own worth because of this story, then everything I've been through will have been worth it." In that moment, Olivia understood she was no longer simply a businesswoman or an ordinary woman. She had become a symbol of dignity, integrity, and self-esteem, an icon that transcended any limits she once imagined. She no longer lived just for herself. She represented the hopes and faith of countless others, awaiting someone to stand up for those very same values. The resounding successes and acclaim for Olivia didn't just bring hope to countless people. They plunged the Hartley Corporation ever deeper into an inescapable crisis. Each of Olivia's achievements served as a sharp reminder that power and prestige without ethics and human respect are doomed to collapse. In the months that followed, Hartley sank into an unprecedented turmoil. Its stock price tumbled relentlessly, major investors pulled out one by one, and long-standing partners lost faith in any hope of reputation recovery. Public outrage and calls for a boycott grew fiercer, forcing the company to announce a comprehensive restructuring plan just to salvage what little remained. Yet everyone understood that this restructuring was only the first step in a long, painful journey. Michael Hartley, once heir to unimaginable wealth and influence, became the focal point of scorn and shunning. He found himself avoiding the disdainful gazes of those who had once admired or feared him. His former arrogance gave way to caution, anxiety, and a crushing loneliness he'd never known. One day, in the quiet of the Hartley mansion, Richard Hartley entered Michael's study. His usual confident bearing had vanished, replaced by weariness and disappointment. Meeting his son's eyes, he spoke in a low, bitter tone. "Michael, I always believed our wealth and power would shield you from your own mistakes. But this time, I was wrong. You've paid too high a price for a lesson I should have taught you long ago." Michael looked at his father with regret and helplessness in his eyes. I know, Dad, but is it too late now? Richard paused, then slowly shook his head. Perhaps not too late, but it will be very difficult. You must truly understand that real power does not come from money or status, but from respect, self-respect, and moral integrity. That is the most valuable lesson Olivia Bennet has taught us. At that same moment, Olivia sat in her office, gently closing the final files of a busy day. Her phone buzzed with a single text from Sarah Mitchell. Olivia, you have won. But more importantly, you've changed how people think about power and human worth. Olivia smiled softly, looking out the window. She recalled her toughest moments, when everything seemed beyond her endurance. Now she knew those trials had been worth it, because they led to today's profound and meaningful outcome. A year after that seismic event, Olivia Bennet was recognized as one of the most influential leaders in both the business world and society at large, not just for her commercial successes, but above all, for the powerful message she steadfastly upheld, that respect and dignity can never be replaced by any material gain. As for the Hartleys, after months of painful restructuring, they began to emerge slowly from the crisis's shadow. Yet everyone understood they had permanently lost the unconditional trust society once gave them. The price they paid was not in money or reputation alone, but in a hard-won awakening to a vivid lesson about character and self-respect. Michael Hartley, now more discreet and avoiding the media spotlight, quietly contributed to charitable organizations. Perhaps at last, he was beginning to grasp the true meaning of respect and humility. Yet he also knew the road to regaining the respect of those he'd hurt would be long and fraught with challenges. Meanwhile, Olivia continued to inspire countless young people, especially women of color, striving to claim their true worth. She had become the embodiment of integrity, self-respect, and dignity. A living testament that no matter how harsh the world may be, human dignity cannot be defeated as long as we hold firm to our principles and beliefs. And so, Olivia Bennet's story transcended that of a powerful businesswoman standing up to insult. It became a profound lesson on the true nature of power and success. The genuine power lies not in money or social standing, but in the ability to preserve one's self-respect, ethics, and dignity through every storm life brings. What about you? Have you ever faced a similar choice between preserving your dignity and pursuing material gain? Share your story in the comments below. If you found this story meaningful, please like, share this video, and subscribe for more inspiring stories in the future. Thank you for joining us.